At what age do you think we should be putting that into practice, taking supplements and everything?
You know, even a 5-year-old might need supplements if you ask me. In this country, almost everybody is vitamin D deficient. You know, once your child hit 5 years old, look into his gut or look into her gut and understand what kind of microbiome they have. They may need some pro and prebiotics to alter the gut because there's a huge gut-brain connection, and that may alter the way they live their whole entire life. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you much. My pleasure, absolute pleasure. Honestly, I feel like going back to kindergarten. That's exactly what I am on this topic, yeah? So for me, it's more fascinating that I'm actually going to learn something. However, I watched some videos, and this lovely lady here, Raina, she was telling me, I was like, seriously? You humans are on another level. That's what I was. And believe it, majority of the audience are in that space. Because we spoke a little earlier.
Yes.
My world, it's to do with marketing. My world is about investment, founders. That's where I'm doing the gatekeeping. I'm also very curious how the AI world and everything, but this has become another baby, and I can see literally night after night, days after days, this is going to take up my space. And I'm very much excited, and excited the fact and honored the fact that you've taken the time to join us. Apologies, the other host, Neha, she actually got stuck in India. She was unable to fly. We found out yesterday. I tried the best. However, Neha is going to be on the next pod show. Talking to some of you, looking at the excitement, I've already decided that next month we are going to have a very big show. Today is a very curated, small audience, so we can have one-on-one conversation to know how to better shape the next one. So the next one is going to be very big, and it's going to get filled up very, very easily. I don't think Paul's done justice to you. I don't think Pod has done justice at all to your introduction. If you could please help us by giving light as to what you do and where you fit in.
Sure. So I think let me start by introducing my company. We're called Verve Wellness. I started off Verve with the ideology of how can I educate more doctors and how can I reach out to more people in providing the longevity aspect of medicine. So I was trained in internal medicine, so I come from a very conventional background, and then I diverged into the integrative space. And what does that mean, right? So essentially we take all the knowledge we have in conventional medicine, your boring old white room doctor stuff, and then we look at the traditional medicine and how other people are doing it and see where's the middle ground, because I believe we should not discriminate the science, right? There's no one science that knows it all. Yoga or Ayurveda, TCM, they've been here for thousands of years. There must be some science, some knowledge to it that essentially functions, right? So how do we put that together and how do we help people? And when I came here 4 years ago, I realized there was a certain gap in the market and we were doing very well in filling up the gap. Actually, one of those gaps is the NHS itself. You know how difficult it is to get appointments, and so I started having patients.
Especially now.
Yeah.
It's got really bad.
It's gone really bad. Some of my clients tell me they have to wait 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So we went full on running a concierge service. We say, okay, come down to Dubai. We'll do a full medical tourism for you. We'll get everything sorted. You need an MRI? Tomorrow morning, an MRI is done for you. So our business has thrived since. So that's the whole entire aspect of things. Integrative wellness space focus on medical wellness and concierge. And we help businesses equip themselves in doing this in the correct order, putting the science behind the whole entire buzz of longevity.
Getting excited, really getting excited. 101 things are going through my head. I think some of you are not going to like it. Raina warned me, be careful what you say and what you ask. But this is what it is, right? True conversation. Doctor, once again, thank you very much.
Most welcome.
You know, when I was told, when they told me about longevity, I thought it's living longer, right? In your context, in the longevity context, how, rather than living longer, living well? Because for me, that's very, very important, right? Let's talk about that, longevity in the basis of living well.
Okay, so let's put the definition to it, right? When you said living long, that's what they call lifespan. Living well is what we call health span.
Yes.
Now, most clinics or a lot of, influencers are picking either side. You talk about living well and the others who talk about living long, right? People who are spending millions doing this. In my opinion, longevity has to be both. It should be both living well with the ideology of how long can I live. There's some factors that you cannot change. For example, I cannot guarantee you can live long. You might walk down today, get into a car, get into an accident, you're passed on. That's not on my control. But someone might get cancer. Genetically, you might have that predisposition. But if you get screened early, for example, we can take an active approach towards that. So when you talk about longevity, right, why do I say we need to do both? Is because there's no one way to achieve that particular goal, especially living well and living long. When you talk about living well, what does living well means? What is well? Well for me might be very different well from you, right? But as a practitioner, as a clinic, what we want is, my goal for you is to live up to 80, 90 years old and remain functional and live with dignity. Carry your groceries up your own home, right? When you have an empty nest, when your kids leave your home and you've got grandchildren, you're able to still roll on the floor and play with them, right? Not be on a wheelchair. If another disease struck, you understand, or another epidemic struck, you understand what is the right course of action for you, right? You're able to feed yourself. You're able to, go to the toilet yourself. To me, that is what the definition of longevity should be. To be self-sustaining and functional till the day you die.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Look, I'm gonna go away because there's something actually picking up on that. I always look at my son, he's 14. Then I look at myself, an old man. And I think, am I going to be around that time? What's my condition going to be like? So now that you've put that into perspective, I know exactly where I want to go. Because I'm always fighting, okay, how can I be at my fittest beyond 100? Okay, let's not do, okay, between 70 and how can I be at my fittest? So that's something should be for every one of us. Okay, that is a big thing, because where the world is now, the activities that we have in our life, it's like becoming a zoo. I look at 9 o'clock and everyone's heading towards their office. And I look at 6 o'clock and everyone's heading towards home. And for me, that's like almost, and if I can put it in perspective, day of judgment. Everyone's going to be heading one direction, do or die. And that itself tires me out. So now I just put into perspective the 8 hours of the work. What are they like? What are they doing? Right? But when you pick up wellness, health, life, longevity, biohacking, it puts things in perspective. Most of the people, till you broke it down, talk about longevity being longer life. Do you think the media or the medics or the people that are out there, whatever the World Health Organization gets paid for, I'm not claiming that they get paid to promote wrong things, whatever they do you think it's a perception that we're building that we're never going to see? Or are we in too early?
Well, it depends which media you're reading, right? You've got two sides of media. You look at Instagram, you have a lot of influencers who's telling you a certain thing.
And they don't use it themselves.
They don't use it themselves, yes. Or you have guys who are, super billionaires who are spending $1 million a month to make themselves healthy. And then they contradict themselves. Today snake oil is great. Tomorrow rapamycin. Then tomorrow it's like, oh no, I made a mistake. And then you have associations like you just picked up, WHO, who tells you to do a particular thing. But when a problem arises, they themselves are clueless, right? You saw that in COVID. I don't believe in conspiracy theories, but we know there were a lot of screw-ups that happened during the COVID time. We are in this space today. Everything has blown up because of what happened in COVID. And we have to give COVID that credit. People woke up and realized, you know what? I'm not going to live my health on a third party. I'm going to take measurable expense on understanding who I am as a person and what changes I need to make. But there also is a lot of mud. There is a lot of blurred information out there. So a lot of people are trying to do different things, which is why I think it's very important getting the right media, the right information out there to understand what's the right step to take.
Absolutely. Look, I didn't know about longevity. I only knew about, what do you call them? The supplements that you take. All the proteins and everything. Okay, I'm going to jump in a little bit further. When I was researching, I saw this guy taking loads of tablets and everything. And he's only 30 or 32. At what age do you think we should be putting that into practice, taking supplements and everything else?
Even a 5-year-old might need supplements, if you ask me. In this country, almost everybody is vitamin D deficient. If a child is vitamin D deficient, you have to replace. If a child, for example, I tell my clients, if you were not able to breastfeed your child for whatever reason, once your child hit 5 years old, look into his gut or look into her gut and understand what kind of microbiome they have. They may need some pro and prebiotics to alter the gut because there's a huge gut-brain connection and that may alter the way they live their whole entire life. Supplementation should be taken like medicine. understand what your deficiencies are, what your needs are, and take it accordingly. There's no one pill fits all, and there's no one brand that is going to be suitable for everybody. One person may take a particular brand and have a very different effect comparing to a different person. So once again, you have to take it as a need basis and understanding why you're taking it, which is why I go back to screening, which is why I say screening is super important.
If I just put things into perspective, when I wanted to build up, I took protein. But with the protein, I have to train. For me now, what I was saying is that if I take protein shake, I can't just take protein shakes and expect, big arms, big shoulders and everything else. I have to go and train. I know of the research I've done lately that people are taking all the pills and everything else and saying it's not working. But for me, if you want to sleep, you're taking a sleeping pill, then you're still 2 or 3 in the morning, you're still trying to do your work, right? You defeat the objects, right? Where do you see the challenge in that, and where are people going wrong?
You go to the gym, right? And you've got 2 guys. One guy who's super buff, really built up, and a skinny guy who's just starting off. Skinny guy asks buff guy, how do I become you? What do I do? Buff guy says, take protein, I take BCA, I take amino acids, I take creatinine, this is what. And he's great, he's in the best shape in his life. Skinny guy goes, buys all the supplements and start taking it. But you know what he doesn't do? He doesn't understand who he is as a person. He trains, but he doesn't sleep, okay? He trains, but he still eats junk food. What is the point? You see, you're asking the buff guy the wrong question. The question you should be asking him is, what is your weight? What is your height? How much is protein per pound or per body weight you should be taking, right? How do I start on these fundamental exercises? What are you taking for recovery? What are you taking for muscle building? There are specifics that these people jump into. So having that knowledge, I always watch all these YouTube videos and all you have these fitness influencers who are telling you how to train, but not many people give you the hacks of how to understand what your body is and what your body needs and the science behind it. That I think is what's missing in this conversation among everybody.
I totally agree with this. I recently walked in to a pharmacy and I went in and I said, hey, listen, I want to bulk up. Can you please suggest what do I do? So I had to wait around for someone, a doctor in the pharmacy, to come and say. I asked him, so have you ever taken this supplement? And he said, I have. And I said to him, so how often do you hit the gym? And he went, at least 3 to 5 times. I said, how many hours do you work a week? And he looked at me. I said, how many days do you work? Because when I looked at him, I don't know which gym he goes to. If he's the one who's giving me the supplement, it was for the wrong reasons. Okay? So exactly, understanding where you are, what you do, what you want to take for, what you want to achieve is the main thing. And the other one that you say is like screening. Because no 2 person is the same. Correct. No 2 bodies is the same. Doesn't matter what you do, I think you'll agree is that you have to have a pattern, you have to have a follow, you have to have a program in every single thing. Now we're filled with pills and these subjects people actually put into our head, which is marketing. If you go back in early days, I've seen people, I've heard of people, I know of people that actually lived through World War II. They didn't have that. What is the difference of then and what is the difference now? Why are we talking about subjects and bringing things up that we had a better life then and whatnot? I know there's so much more and this and this and that. I want a clarity on that.
So, okay, let me answer the question by asking a question. How many of you actually have organic food?
Perfect. You're from UK, right?
Yeah.
It's Sainsbury's organic. So whatever is on the shelf.
Exactly that. But if you look at the people from that day and age as well, most of their food came out of the ground or it came from a tree, and their bone structure, like my grandfather, his bone structure is so thick, and I think they're just having a different amount of calcium, and most of them are probably breastfed as well,
Sure.
And I think that makes a massive difference.
And at that point of time, life was very different. You work hard, right? And you eat because you need it as fuel, not because it's time to eat. So if you look at our forefathers, or you go back to our ancestors, or those who, in the times where they were in the jungle, they didn't have food to eat all the time. They were not able to hunt all the time, right? So they ate food as fuel. We today, we eat because it's time to eat. And media, right? And especially the Western media has taught us that you need to have carbohydrates as your base. That's something that you need to have in all your meal. You need to have 3 times a day. Breakfast is the most important meal. If you miss your breakfast, all hell break loose, sort of a thing. That is what's changed. And what is good breakfast? Cereal, right? Since when? Since when did you have cereals in World War II and our forefathers?
And sugar.
Things that come out of your box, sugar.
Yeah.
Why do you need so much of those things? That's what's changed. The food that we have is what's changed and causes all this disease that we have today.
Not only the food, the stress.
Yes.
Before there is not much stress same like we are. The people, they are working in the farm, everything inside them, they are eat healthy and don't have any stress. But nowadays, a lot of stress we face it, like
I
traffic.
think that's the choice that
The
we
first
have of what
stress
Actually, I think I'll disagree with you.
Yeah,
How can we know for sure that there was no
they
stress?
didn't.
Well, especially back then, on the grandfather and things like that, they were sent down pits at 12-year-olds. So you can imagine like 12-year-olds working down a mine.
Is that not stress?
But I tell you what they had different. They had communities. They had a great support system. There were families, That is what's different in our society today. Communities have changed. Relationships are very transactional. You don't have a trust system. When you don't have a trust system, how many of us go to bed, with whatever that's happening right now in social media, how many of us go to bed waking up in the morning feeling like, I've got somebody I can go up to and speak to about this? We don't. But we know I've got to wake up and chase that deer and make that money. I've got to make that buck, right? And you're living on that high cortisol. But you come back and you don't have that space where you can release. I think that's what's different.
100%. It's people around you, the community you're in, who you have. And the other thing is, I think it's all inbuilt, it's built in you. But nowadays, most of the thing is taken, our stress reliever and our go-to doctor has become Instagram. Right? Majority has become Instagram. And it's like when we have people like yourself, and listen, I didn't talk to doctor before this, so I did not pay him, and it's not sponsored by him either. You need communities like this. That's why what I'm hoping to do, what we are hoping to do. And I'm grateful for the fact that I think 2-3 of you came together and said, hey, Dil, and you told my colleague, hey, Dil, how can we make this a better community? How can we? We do have, I think, in place already a WhatsApp that you can add yourself to, and we're going to share, and we're going to bring you in, and you're going to have panel discussions, a round table where we can have 4 or 5 people have deep conversation, and from the next month one, it's going to be lively. So you're going to have people joining from you all around the world. Okay. So before I go further, it is going to happen next month, and we're going to bring it back once again.
So I must say this, right? If we talk about longevity, the one common denominator that makes longevity successful, whether it's health span or lifespan, it's community building. Because if you have a group of people who are smoking and you're part of that group and you're trying to smoke, no way you're going to stop. You've got to change that. So if you want to live long, you got to hang around people who live long, who understands that, If you want to live healthy, you got to do certain things. You got to sleep right, you got to eat right, you got to live around those people, and you will then be able to do it.
I spoke to a friend of mine yesterday, and I said to me, Dil, what do you do in the morning? I said, I just sit in the balcony and I just meditate, I just read, and I just think about work. He said, how about from next week, we'll go to go to Jamaica High Beach, and we do whatever you do before the sun comes out, and I feel that. I've only been hanging out with him for 2 weeks, and that to me is like completely reassuring, refreshing. Just like you said, you're only what you are is what you eat and the people you surround yourself in, and you become part of that. We have a few questions thrown in by my team, which I have to ask you.
Sure.
There is so much focus on extending health span, those vibrant, disease-free years. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions people have about it, and what it takes to age healthily? I know we touched on that slightly, but aging healthily.
So I think the misconception that everybody has is, I have tomorrow and I'll do it tomorrow, right? I'm healthy today, I should be okay tomorrow.
Yeah.
To ensure that we age healthy, you have to start doing things today. Actually, I read this doctor who posted, the less than 1% of the world can do something like 20 pull-ups, right? 30 push-ups, can run a mile within less than 7 minutes, can do a bunch of things which I said I'm not even in that 1%, right? No way I can do any of this. But if you're trying, if you're making active decisions every day to make the small changes to ensure that you live longer, whether it's eating healthier, sleeping better, small changes that compounds every day, I think that will get you there.
Perfect. Anybody has anything to say to this? Yes, please.
I have a question, Mr. Gill and Doctor. I just would like to see and ask your opinion about how to do a balance. Of course, we wanted to market our services because at the end of the day, we don't want to be stressed on paying the bills. So we have to make the mark for you to be able to balance all the bills. But again, I don't want it to make it appear as too much marketing at the expense of wellness. So what is the right balance of attuning things when it comes to marketing your services, and at the same time, staying true to yourself and aligning to yourself? Because at the end of the day, nothing is free.
I have a quick answer to that.
Yes.
Have you met a guy called Dil? You met a guy called Dil?
Now,
Yeah, he has a company called Emirates Podcast, and a production company called DBVP, and a marketing company as well. Okay, you give that to me, I'll take the stress away from you. But it won't be expensive, it won't be free, but you'll do a good job. That means you have more time to yourself, to your family, and that's my
in
answer.
reality, what is the balance? We have to also be knowing how to allocate things.
On a serious note, I'm not a doctor. Doctors should do the doctoring job. I'm not a gardener. Gardener should do the gardening job. Accounting should do those, and the marketing people should do yours, and you do what you love doing and expertise. That is a simple formula.
Yeah.
There's Ati, and you can also go to Ati as well.
But I tell you, if you ask me, don't sell a service. Sell a value of what you're doing. You see, when you're selling a service, you're working for it.
Yes.
When you sell value, you put a price to it, you understand what you're doing, and you get it back in return. Maybe it's much slower than everybody else, right? But at least you feel, if I'm giving value to somebody else, you have a self-satisfaction. And that itself helps. Whatever stress it brings, you go to sleep knowing I made a
Money
difference
can't buy
today.
that.
Yeah.
Self-satisfaction of seeing another person really smile, that's value.
Yes. Sell the value then, not your services.
Ati was about to say something.
Yes.
All I was gonna say is that in addition to what you said, 100%, the value of what you're giving comes from you and the service you're providing. But from a marketing perspective, it's the story you tell, and it goes down to ethical marketing.
Yes.
Which is where we have the difference between sustainable marketing and greenwashing. Same thing here. As long as it's packaged in an ethical way where it's being transparent and upfront, then you can pay the bills, get in clients ethically, and everything's fine.
Okay. One last question, doctor. I used to have like 7 to 10 medications before because of what I'm taking, which is natural, not organic, but natural health supplement, which is liquid. It actually triggered my body to get well. Just imagine, I cannot walk before. I was in a wheelchair. And then also, my husband is a physiotherapist. I am a physiotherapist. We have our company here since more than 10 years. He was telling me that the more you're taking medications, the more you're overworking your kidneys and your liver. And that's the reason why you're getting well, because we're getting rid of those maintenance medicine, which actually ruins your body. So now what is, again, the balance? Even when I was in the hospital before, my doctor, I used to have 7 doctors. The doctor was telling me that we have to be going by the book. It's not just about the health supplement. But my husband was telling me, no, add this into Charmaine's NGT. And then I lived, all the rest died during COVID. Yeah? So I wanted to have a balance, and being a doctor yourself, what should be the proper balance without stepping on the boundaries of your profession?
No, actually, honestly speaking, you won't be stepping on my boundaries, because the way this should be done is all your 7 doctors should be speaking to each other and understand what you need. Now, this is what I believe. This is the medicine that I believe. All that medicine and supplement that went into you is only 10% of the work. I only do 10%. 90% comes from you. If you believe you're going to be well itself, that works. If you believe supplement A is going to help you, most likely supplement A will work better than supplement B. My job as a doctor, as a practitioner, is to have full knowledge of what I'm giving you and why is it going to benefit you, and give you that knowledge so that you understand what's going in. See, it goes back to the 90%. That's a conversation. Now, if you're going to ask me, how do I find that balance? It's different person to person. It's what your body needs. You see, that sentence that you said, if your liver and your kidney is excreting and is doing his job, look, I cannot make your liver and kidney do his job. It will do his job either way. There's something that is quite famous in the industry, or in Dubai, liver detox. You cannot detox your liver. Do you know that? The liver will do its own job to detox. It does not get detoxed by you. You can help supplement it. You can help give it some glutathione. You can help give it some NAD. It can give you some tools, but it will do its own job. What you need to do is fix the problems that you have and the deficiencies that you have accordingly, the right way, and there might not be one tool. You have to figure out different tool that works for you. What works for you may not work for your husband, for example, right? But if something works for you, then fine, do it. Get checked, follow through, and see, what's too much, and make adjustments accordingly.
Thank you so much.
Most welcome.
Do you have any other questions? Yeah.
Please.
Can we have the mic? Okay.
Right. Okay. Doctor, somebody wants to shift from their abnormal life to the longevity. So, what would be 3 basic things you would recommend to start their journey?
Okay, I want to answer your question that you asked me earlier, right? What is integrative, functional, and the whole space of longevity? Now, if you look at longevity science, there's 7 pillars, but I've added 3 more, and these are the pillars of longevity that I believe in and our motto in our company: nutrition, movement, cellular health supplementation, sleep optimization, emotional health and mindfulness, hormonal health, gut health, and then I've added aesthetics, regenerative therapy, and community building. Right now, in this, I believe there is both conventional and traditional medicine where we come together and we look at the science of both practices and understand what you as an individual believe in and what you need as a person. Train in internal, right? But we understand that functional medicine is about understanding the biology of a particular person and understanding the deficiencies, the problems, the root cause analysis, and these are just tools. When it comes to treatment, it's all about personalization. Understanding what your client or your patient needs and working them through that. So for example, she spoke about yoga and fertility, right? I've seen some of these yoga practitioners who have worked amazingly with yoga therapists, gut health, and in improving all of this, and the patients themselves losing weight, for example, has tremendously improved their fertility risk and chance, right? So that is the space that we are creating and how we believe longevity should work, because like I said, the denominator to this is the community building. Now, when you ask me what are 3 things anybody should change from a normal life to, something that is in a direction of longevity, or you say biohacking, first is food. Cook your own food. Eat whole foods, fresh foods that are cooked. Anything that comes out of box, anything that comes out of a can, those are things that you don't want to touch, even if it says organic, right? It can't be organic if it comes in a box. I don't believe in that. Second is sleep, right? You have to sleep 7 hours a day. If you're not getting 7 hours of sleep, you're killing yourself, right? Third, you got to move. You don't have to hit the gym. You don't have to lift weights. You just have to move. 6,000, 10,000 steps, be active. If you're doing these 3 things, you're at least in that wheel of longevity. Changing your food,
home cooked food, and then exercises and good sleep.
Yeah. I mean, if you got money and you can buy organic food that they'll cook really well, I got no problem. But otherwise, know what's going into your mouth. Really look into what you're cooking, because that makes a difference.
Somebody with, for example, diabetes or some IBDs or IBS, as we discussed before. So, doctor, this was the first time I heard from you now, which is very I'm impressed, and we should consider it. I have few patients, they are going with diabetes or IBDs, they are coming directly to me to go through the wellness for the longevity. They want to treat with regenerative stem cell treatment, they want to treat with the IV multivitamins, and already they are taking steroids and they are on steroids therapy. So what would you recommend to those people who are already in chronic diseases but still they are coming to the...
I love speaking about these 2 diseases. So let's talk about diabetes, right? So you've got type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is because your body is not able to produce insulin on its own. It's a genetic issue. So I'm going to put that aside. Let's talk about type 2 diabetes, which is 95% of the diabetes in the world. The US government says that they spend $500 million on treating diabetes year on year. But type 2 diabetes is not a genetic disease. It's not a hereditary disease. It's a lifestyle disease. It's because people do not know how to eat and what they should eat. You do not need to have that much carbohydrates in your food. And because you don't even move, you don't utilize all that glucose. So you know what happens when you eat food? Carbohydrates turn into a source of glucose. Glucose then needs to go into your cell, right? For glucose to go into your cell, you need insulin to come and open the door. Now, after a certain point, your cell realizes, I've got too much of this insulin, I can't deal with this, right? So what it does is store it as fat. It becomes less resistant. The only thing you need to do is fix the way you eat. I've helped patients reverse diabetes, not even having to spend hundreds of thousands doing regenerative therapies like stem cell. Just remove carbohydrates of their food and I start seeing improvements. Just getting them to move, right? So when you talk about stem cells in type 2 diabetes, I always tell my clients, happy to collect 100,000 and give you 100 million cells. But let me tell you something, if you do not move, you don't change the lifestyle, change the way you eat, next year you're going to pay me the same amount of money again. I'm happy. but your problem is not going to be solved. It's pointless. So it's important to get these things done. When you talk about IBD, IBS, slightly more complicated. Let's talk about IBS, for example. IBS is a disease whereby when I don't know what else is wrong with you, I've done all the scopes, I've done all the treatments, I don't know where your diarrhea or constipation is coming from. Most likely you have some kind of hypersensitivity. So I said, IBS, we got to live with it, symptomatic treatment. People say lifestyle changes. What is that lifestyle changes? Not many people can define that. But when you have to sit down with that particular client, and this I'm saying as a doctor, what we got to do, right? And understand what their lifestyle is. I had one patient who's been treated for, this is IBD, very chronic, and I sat with him and I realized it is his divorce that's causing him trouble. Medicines is not just going to help, he needs psychotherapy, treatments. I've had patients who tell you that, they've had IBS or IBD, for example, but this particular person likes eating certain kind of food. And when we do food intolerance tests and we do allergy testing to look at the microbiome, we realize that the way this person is eating is wrong. Changing the way they eat, removing things like gluten, dairy, essentially help. Dairy, for example. Do you know most people are intolerant to dairy? There's a particular gene that you can screen for and tell you whether you are likely to be tolerant or intolerant to dairy. And me, myself, right? So growing up, I've always had bloating and my mom would feed me. I grew up in an Indian family, cereal, breads and things like that. And I have this terrible bloating. So when I was working, we started prescribing intermittent fasting. So I started doing that. And when I started doing intermittent fasting, I felt amazing. I would only eat at 2 p.m. But one of the things that came out of my diet was my milk coffee and my milk teas, desi chais, right? They came out completely. I felt better. And then my wife went into this whole journey and she started removing gluten, dairy out of everything. I was like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Are you going to become vegan next? Don't do this. I've got to have my dates. And she's like, nope, I'm not doing it. So somewhere along the way, I said, okay, I'll just try. And I felt great. And I did a genetic analysis on myself and it came out as I was actually gluten and lactose intolerant. And the last 3 years, I've completely cut this out and I've never felt better. I've not had any bloating. My skin is better. My life is better. My sleep is better. So, like I said, you need to take a proactive approach. Yeah. Yes, please.
But before we move forward with the question, it's interesting because there was a documentary, this British guy, he went to America, it's called Super Size Me, and he ate McDonald's, nothing but McDonald's for 3 months, and he ended up with type 2 diabetes. So it just shows you that obviously it is the food, and secondly, you can reverse it, so it is a lifestyle change. And one of the things that I teach my coaching clients is the 888 method. So it's 888, 8 hours sleep, 8 hours work. What are you doing in them other 8 hours? And people have to be honest with themselves, because I think that they're under the illusion that they don't have enough time, but of course there's no planning on there. And so what I wanted to ask you actually is it true that doctors take a Hippocratean oath? Like Hippocrates?
Yes.
You take the oath?
Absolutely.
So Hippocrates was the guy who said, let medicine be thy food and food be thy medicine.
Correct.
And you feel like the industry's making a turn back to its roots like that, or has it always been like that? Where has it all been? Because it seems to be going off on all these different directions. There's so many fields as well to the science.
So the question is actually business and economics, right? Medicine today is a resource management. I'm sorry to say this. Why is the NHS failing? The NHS is failing because it's a huge resource management. People do not pay for their own health. They depend on somebody else to pay for it. So you don't care. You don't care what happens as long as I can check in. But you see what happens. Going back to diabetes, right? You have half the population with diabetes that sits in a counter and they complain about, how they're not being able to get treatment on time. Doctors are burned out because they need to see hundreds of patients. The whole entire ecosystem is failing. If you ask me, there needs to be a complete shift. Yes, do no harm, right? Eat thy food, but take responsibility of your own health. If you ask me, you should pay for it. Change the way the economics works. This thing should not be free until you realize that health is an investment and a liability by itself. If I do not live well, I'm going to pay for it. I feel that would change the way you think about it.
You do lifestyle consultations?
Yes. In my practice, we do lifestyle consultations. We look at how I can change that lifestyle. How do I set you on a journey that or a session?
Because when my wife comes back from the doctor, I'm always like, did he ask you, how much you're exercising, how much water you're drinking, do you get sunshine? Because obviously I'm from the UK and you go on the doctor and they're like, right, paracetamol, this tablet, that tablet, and you're just like, and you come away from there kind of disempowered because you're like, well, the doctor must be right, I must trust what he says, even though there might be something on your mind or something you're feeling deep inside that maybe, you're doing wrong. And that's where then it goes into psychology, and it goes into this, and it kind of gets lost in the system.
That's changing now. I think there are more and more doctors who understands this, and they are trying. But the problem is, like I said, they're overwhelmed. They've got quotas. If you've worked in any of these primary care centers, there are numbers, and there's a nurse behind you who tells you you've only seen 6. You need to see another 10. The guy behind you has already seen 16. Why are you so slow? Speed up, right? You can't blame them. And then talk about the guys in the private sector, right? They need to pay the bills. They need to, pay for all of these things. And then you're like, okay, if I'm seeing X number of patients in 1 hour and this is my cost, it doesn't make sense. So, look, I'll be honest with you. My prices are not cheap, right? My prices are slightly more expensive than what other doctors would charge. But what I give in difference is I give a full hour to my patient, maybe 1.5 hours. My patients can call me 11 o'clock and then they ask me, Doc, the morning you said the supplement was before food or after food? What should I do, And they send me my messages. But that works out, right? So, like I said, you asked, how do I find that balance of earning money and, surviving this? Everybody needs to understand that even the doctor who sits behind the desk, he's not doing a health service. This is not just a noble thing. He needs to pay his food. He needs a bill to pay as well. So do him justice, do her justice, That's where the community part comes into play. And like I said, I'm not an expert in everything. Right? Certain things, ask me anything related to a blood test, a disease, I can tell you. Ask me yoga, I don't know. I'll go to her and I'll say, you are great at it. Tell me, how does that work? But I might have a naturopath who understands Ayurveda and yoga as his passion. He might be better at it, which is why I need to learn from him, for example. So we need all the different players in the industry to essentially educate us. And we have to come in with an open mind. If we come in and say, this guy is wrong, this guy is right, media says this, this is how it should be done, then you're at a losing end.
Are we good? Okay, just moving on, picking up from what you have a question that's just come in, picking up from where you left. There's a gap between longevity science and what actually gets implemented in the day-to-day patient's care. You've answered something very similar. It's like numbers, you've got people standing behind you. But what's one thing clinics could immediately adopt from this space, and that would make a measurable difference?
Change the way you do your blood testing. Just don't look at the regular boring stuff that even hospital does. For example, lipid panels, right? Everybody looks at total cholesterol, HDL, LDL. And then, you have patients come and tell you, my cholesterol is high, my total cholesterol is 6. That's bollocks. It's bull if you ask me, Total cholesterol means nothing. What's more important is your LDL, yes, but also your, oxidized LDL, for example. So look at screenings that not just look at problems right now, but can actually give you preventive measures, right? A lot of people just look at fasting and they don't do HbA1c. But even HbA1c, which is a defining factor for diabetes, if you ask me, is not enough. I would rather look at fasting insulin, which can tell me way earlier on how insulin resistant you are and what direction you're going to go in 5 years. So those things, I think clinics need to change.
And I think the clinics and the doctors and NHS is under a lot of influential powers to do what they can do and what they can sell and what they can give. Because I've looked at some case studies and I looked at the medication. There are all about 20, 30 different medication pills. One of them would not let them sleep, but the person previously has gone to another doctor complaining, I can't sleep, that's the problem. Another person saying that, look, I'm getting pressure under that, and only to find out the doctors has actually removed a pill that previously she's gone to somebody else for. From your experience, I know you gave us the 5 pillars. To summarize to everything that's we've talked about and that's happening, if we in a room and the listeners wanted to start and have a pattern, what are some of the steps they can take?
So, as I mentioned, I think I'll say the 3 things that, I mentioned to the doctor. First is fix your sleep, right? Try to sleep well. Try to get in at least 7 hours a day. Studies have actually shown, cancer is correlated to sleep. Sleeping less can actually cause cancer, for example. So sleep is really important. Second is just try to move. Just try to get in your steps every day, right? Start off with 5, move to 6, aim for 10. 10 is great, but it's not a fixed number. If you can't do 10 today, catch it up on the weekend, right? And third, change the way you eat. I've got an 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, if you're good, 20% I'll tell you I can give you a discount, because at the end of the day, you have to live in communities. I don't believe in this, you cannot drink, you cannot eat out, you can't have a McDonald's. you got to live life. So which is why community building is so important, right? If you have a child and your child goes to school, for example, he see his friend eating McDonald's, he might come and ask you, Dad, I want to have a McDonald's. Are you really going to turn the child down? Tomorrow he's going to want to try it. But educating him is important, right? If that's something he enjoys, fine, he gets it once a week, but the rest of the time he learns how to be good, he learns how to eat well. So 80-20 is really important. If you have a business meeting, you got to go out of the weekend, or you're going to go on a holiday. Like, for example, what's the point of going to Thailand if you're not going to have tom yum, right? There are a lot of things in tom yum that can essentially flare you up. But, if 80% of the time you've done good, enjoy yourself, it's okay. So try to keep an 80-20 rule. I think those are the things that will help you get that.
Any more questions? Raina?
Yeah, still have a question.
Yes.
So I am diagnosed with PCOS, and you do know that a lot of women out there are getting diagnosed with PCOS. I know it does, messes up your hormonal balance, your hormonal health particularly, and doctors these days are prescribing metformin, right? So how do you think that affects in terms of somebody's, well-being?
What do you mean by how does it affect your well-being?
Yeah, in terms of longevity, if somebody wants to have a healthier life, I know that PCOS is also kind of connected with your life cycle. Your lifestyle, right? So how does one,
So actually there's several types of PCOS. One of the subtypes of PCOS is insulin-resistant PCOS. Cases like this is where we give metformin because we understand the metformin will help reduce your weight and insulin resistance. So it's a wonderful drug. It does work a lot. Now, for my patients who have PCOS, I always ask them, we got to analyze what's the root cause of the PCOS. There could be environmental causes, toxins, understanding these disbalances that's pushing off your hormones is actually very beneficial. One common problem I find with everybody is their gut health. Very poor gut health, very poor absorption affects the gut hormone axis, right? And then you've got high testosterone, and that gives you, a whole cascade of issues. And then you have the whole weight thing that comes to play, and you struggle. So taking metformin alone and hoping that you'll fix the problem, no, it's not going to, right? Ensuring that you fix your gut, ensuring that you fix your sleep, exercise is actually really important, right? And treating those deficiencies. Some of my patients have vitamin D deficiency that affects your PCOS. Taking supplementations with inositol, for example, essentially helps. So there's no one way. There are multiple things that you need to do to get that.
Is there a way to basically lifestyle changes that will help treat PCOS? I don't know much about PCOS, but I know that every single one of my friends suffers from it. So I want to know, is there a way that lifestyle changes can help them get rid of it, or?
Absolutely. I think a couple of things. So first thing that I always tell them is I prescribe intermittent fasting to most of my PCOS patients, right? Because of the insulin resistance, you want to reduce the insulin spikes. So eat lesser, at a fixed time period, number one. Number two, you most likely are going to need some supplementations to fix the deficiencies. Understanding what your deficiencies are and then fixing it will be very beneficial. Third thing, right? Having an active lifestyle helps. When you have all that excess amount of testosterone that's going on, imbalance between your estrogen and progesterone, right? If you're able to exercise, and when I say exercise, I do mean lift weights, you can channel off some of these hormones correctly, and that can essentially help with the excess hormones that you have. And fourth, you got to try to fix your sleep. Sleep plays a huge role because there is a stress component, there's a cortisol component that affects PCOS. You want to ensure that you regulate that. 8 out of 10 times of my PCOS patient, there is some kind of stress component and cortisol, imbalances that affects them. So addressing all of this is quite important. Those are the lifestyle changes I think that they should take.
As we come to the end of this, I want to thank every one of you for being here, for participating. I've learned a lot from you. Next month, we're going to do the same topic, health and wellness, but it's going to be very, very big. We wanted to create a very small, curious crowd so I can have this off-balance conversation, if I can say this. Thank you for the openness. Thank you for your energy, for making this what it is. The next pod show, I'd love to see you here. This isn't the end. This is just the beginning. We have a WhatsApp community. Raina, please share that. Register on that. Push your services out. Build friends. For me, networking doesn't work when you just network, because you network with your net worth and that becomes money. Money isn't the answer to everything. Trying to source friends in this network. Trying to find, like you said, if you can have another person who, when you wake up in the morning and you had a stressful day, who can you pick up the phone with? Do you have that person? When you start to balance your life with this kind of people, you'll have a happy time. I'm fortunate that I have people like you. I have the doctors actually come in here to talk to us, and I want to build this community more in that shape for people like you. My name is Dil Khan from Embrace Podcast with my lovely team. Thank you very much for being here.